Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. WildMax1 here bringing another Raid Shadow Legends video. Today's showcase comes as a viewer request for a full auto-friendly Nightmare Hydra team featuring Titus Blackplume. The twist is we are not going to be using Wixwell and instead we're going to be using Brogni. I was able to pull just over 1.6 billion damage on Nightmare full auto with this team, and today I'm going to be breaking down how the team works, showing you my AI setup, highlighting key moments from the run, and finally showing you the builds of the different champs and offering some replacements. So with that, let's get into it. So before we dive into my team and the individual champions on it, let's first briefly discuss what an Infinity Shield team is, which is what I featured in today's video, and how it works. So at its most basic, all this involves is putting a shield on your team, getting some buff extenders on your team that can keep the shield going, and finally finding a way to grow the value of that shield. Now, as of the filming of this video, there are 3 separate sources that you can get shields from that you can grow on your champions. One comes from Relics, so think your Valcardiac Heart and your Magma Shield. One comes from artifact sets, so your basic shield set. And the third is just from skills, so think Brogni or Krisk. Each of those shields can be increased to a maximum value of 1 million. So if you have all 3 on a champion, you can have a maximum value of 3 million coming from shields. So once you have your shields grown, how do you actually translate that into meaningful damage? That's where champions like Titus Blackplume come in. So Titus's A2 gives him a damage boost equal to the value of the shields that are currently on him. So there you have your 3 components of an Infinity Shield composition. You have your buff extenders, you have your shield growers, and finally you have your damage dealers that benefit from the grown shield. For today's showcase, on my team, I'm only going to be using one shield. It's going to be the one from skills. And the reason I'm doing that is twofold. One is there's a lot of RNG in Hydra. A lot of things can go wrong. You can have Titus be devoured second, and then Magma Shield and the shield set are gone for the rest of the fight anyway. And second is a lot of people don't have Valcardiac Heart, and shield set is relatively easy for people to work in. But again, the RNG involved in Hydra, it's hard to make that consistent. So I wanted to show a good floor for what the damage is going to look like. And as always, if you see any way that the team can be improved, or you see anything that I could have done better, or you've run a similar comp yourself, please share it down in the comments below. Always love to hear you guys' feedback. So with that, let's get into the team. So first, let's just go over the basic Infinity Shield components here. We've got 3 buff extenders in Androc, Lady Mikage, and Mad Hatter. We've got Brogni there to grow the shields, and we've got Titus there to do the damage. Pheidi there more as a floating spot and offers 2 of the elements that I considered crucial for this team for consistency in Hydra. And I've actually made a little list here for you guys when you're going to be building your own teams to make sure. I would say these are listed for me in order of importance for full auto with Titus and Hydra. So the first is managing the first Devour. If you don't know, Devour goes out on the highest crit damage champion in Hydra. If you have it be Titus, then if you bring Valcardiac Heart or shield set, shields for Titus, they're just going to be gone. You want to make sure to keep those on him as long as possible. So I'm, in this case, made Brogni my highest crit damage champion, and that also gives me that added bonus later down the line. If Titus is devoured, I still have enough damage on the team to break him out. After that first Devour, it's going to be random. So you pretty much are just giving yourself the best shot of doing the most damage by just making sure that somebody has higher crit damage than Titus. Second, Perfect Veil. Head of Torment, True Fears, a lot of RNG there. If you're not bringing as many buff extenders and one of them happens to lose their turn, suddenly your shield drops on Titus, it's going to be a sad day, right? For resistance on the team, if you're, whatever difficulty you're going to be encountering, make sure you're bringing enough. You don't want to have the Head of Mischief target Titus or whatever and then just steal off his shields. That would also just very quickly derail your run. Block buffs. Normally, I would say block buffs is one of the most important debuffs to bring for a team in Hydra, but in this case, Titus just deals so much damage that it's less of a big deal. So if Poison Cloud does go out, as we'll see in the run, he can kill straight through it once the shield gets big enough. Hex, with those 50 million plus hits that Titus is going to be doing, that you're going to see, Hex just deals so much damage, splash damage onto the other heads, that it is probably the single best way to increase your damage in this encounter for this specific composition. And then Decrease Defense and Weaken, obviously 2 of the best damage increasing debuffs in Raid. So with the team broken down, let's get right into the run. So I recorded this yesterday. We're going to do this on 2x speed, and I'm going to talk through it. So one of the big questions that a lot of viewers have had for me is, in a full auto run, do I disable Brogni's A3? right? Because you don't want to have him overriding the shield that's been grown already and then reducing that and then, you know, hampering your damage. But in this case, I'll say no. You do not have to do that. If you have enough buff extension going on, I think once the shield on your team is at 4 or above, then there's no shot of Brogni potentially replacing it with his shield. I think that the game prioritizes the duration on the buff, if it's the same one coming in, and then after that, value. So I think that unless, you know, your enormous shield was at 1 turn and then Brogni used his A3, that could potentially result in it getting overwritten. There we saw at about 145 the first big hit, which was 14 million from Titus there. So we're not even close to having a full shield grown yet. I think the highest damage that we're going to get at any hit during this run is going to be at about 57 million. But we should see another big one here coming in at around 245 on that decapitated head right there in the middle. There we go. 34.7, whatever it was, 34 million at 2 minutes and 44 seconds into the fight. Incredible ramping already just from one shield and from, you know, the growth from Brogni. The other question that a lot of viewers have had is, what about Provoke? Do I need to bring a Provoker? Is Titus enough? And if you look right here, if you're watching the Head of Decay, Titus is about to go in with his A2, unresistible Provoke going through Poison Cloud, going and hitting the Serpent's Will buffed Head of Decay right there. So he is going to prioritize the Head of Decay as a Provoker to try to control that. So that will add a little element of consistency for your team. If you want to bring an additional Provoker who happens to also be a buff extender, maybe like a Krisk or something like that, then that will result in more consistency for your run, but it's not strictly necessary. All right, watch out here. We're going to see Brogni get eaten in just a moment for the first Devour of this run. It's going to be the Head of Wrath coming out to take him. And spoiler alert, the next Devour goes on Titus. So worst case scenario for a lot of runs, and we're going to watch how this squad is going to be able to recover from that and still put up a respectable score at the very end. So Titus should be knocking, there we go, 12.8 million hit on to knock out the Head of Wrath right there. We should be seeing our first huge hit here, first over 50 million hit in a moment of the run coming up for Titus. There we go, 53 million, killing two heads outright with that damage, with the splash from Hex. Just so much damage, it's insane. And another one we're going to see in a moment is going to be him hitting through Poison Cloud at around, here, where we go. Poison Cloud goes out. Brogni goes in to hit the Head of Decay, kills him through Poison Cloud, and would have placed the Provoke as well, but in this case, not necessary. So Poison Cloud, not an issue. Any head that has anyone else devoured, Titus is one-shotting it. 51 million right there again. So much damage going out. So we've skipped a little bit further ahead here, and I want you to keep an eye out on the Head of Suffering right there, because Titus is about to get devoured, and the head has a life shield on it, which is, for a lot of teams that don't have any kind of secondary damage dealer, pretty much the end of the run right there. But in this case, as I mentioned earlier, because we built Brogni with good crit damage, with good damage in general, and we have some ally attackers, so we have Mad Hatter's A2, we have Mikage's A3, we actually are going to be doing decent damage and aren't going to be able to break Titus out, even though, again, worst case scenario, we have Titus being our second Devour target and being devoured by the tankiest Hydra head, and that Hydra head has a life shield on, and we're still able to break him out. So just an example of how quickly we can get back into the fight. And pretty soon here, you'll see there he has a shield on him now. A2 from Brogni comes out, Cavern's Grasp, and he already has a sizable shield on himself. So very quickly can this team recover from even the worst case scenario like that, which speaks again to its consistency. So let's see how quickly he starts dealing big damage again. All right, so there we go. 11.3 million right there. Once we get one more Cavern's Grasp, Brogni, especially on those decapitated heads, we're going to see how quickly he starts to ramp up again. should be coming up here. There we go, Cavern's Grasp. And 37 million again. That was not even a minute and a half later in the fight after he was devoured, maybe close to 2 minutes, and he's already back to dealing pretty much the damage he was before. So no reason to doubt this team when it comes to bad RNG, like getting devoured second. It's just really, really consistent and excellent. And there we just saw another 52 million hit. So right back into it. All right, now we've skipped a little bit further into the fight, and the only reason I want to get to this point is because we're about to witness what I saw as the biggest hit that Titus was able to achieve with one shield throughout the entire fight. So look at the exposed neck right now. Here we go, 57 million, and he killed all the other heads with the splash damage from Hex. So again, make sure you're bringing that Hex because those huge hits are going to translate to a lot of damage on all the other heads. So we've skipped a little bit further into the fight just for one reason alone, and that is because we are about to cross the 1 billion mark right here, just over 24 minutes into this run. Now, after this specific full auto showcase, we're going to be doing 3 quick battle runs back to back to back, just because we're going to try to see how consistent this team is. But as you can see from the run so far, really consistent, great at recovery, and a really good option for those that just want to get through their Hydra battles quickly and still get pretty decent clash points. So we've skipped forward once again. This is going to be the beginning of the end of the run here. So we once again have Titus as the next Devour target. The Head of Suffering, the tanky's head, grabs him up again. You'll see in a moment the Head of Decay is going to put Life Barrier once again on the Head of Suffering, and this time the team is unable to break him out, which is unfortunate. Now, in terms of where we're at in the overall turn count, at approximately 29:40, according to my notes, so in another minute, we reach the 750 turn mark. So this run, I'm going to choose to end here in a moment once Titus gets fully devoured. But we had another 250 turns left to go for this specific run, so we would have potentially been able to put up a much better score. So this is going to be the lowest, I believe, of all the runs that I'm going to be showing in the video today. So after this one, we'll do those 3 quick battle runs, and there you have the 750 turn limit, right around 1.2 billion for this specific run. So with that, let's get to the end of the run and to the quick battles. All right, so here we have the moment, I think, where I choose to throw in the towel. There it is, end battle. 1.18 billion damage, 31 minutes it took for the full auto run, and 4.7 billion clash points. So still a really solid run, even though Titus gets devoured twice during that run. So let's take a look at the quick battles now. So once again, pre-recorded video that I did immediately following that full auto run. I'm going to use 3 of my quick battles. This one should go to 1,000 turns, which is a good sign for the consistency of the team. This was the score that we had teased in the beginning, 1.64 billion. 6.5 billion clash points go again right away. And here we see, if you look at the turn counter, it ended somewhere right after turn 900. So we still had a little bit to squeeze out here, but 1.42 billion, very respectable score again. And then the last one here, I think this one gets close to, again, ending just after 900 turns, so before we hit the turn limit, but 1.2 billion damage. So we have 4 runs ranging from 1.18 billion to 1.64 billion. So good consistency on the team, getting all the way up there past turn 900. A lot of potential for recovery from bad situations again with Brogni's damage, the ally attackers, and the reapplication of the shield. And once again, this was all with just 1 shield. No artifact set shield, no Valcardiac Heart. Next up, I wanted to go over my AI setup for the team. So starting with Androc, we had him opening out with his increased defense on all allies. I wanted to make sure Titus was going to do the most damage possible so that he had that buff on him. Pheidi, and then I prioritized increased buff duration on him. For Pheidi, I prioritized the block buffs just to make sure it was as consistent of a run as possible. For Titus, I didn't do anything special. Considered possibly turning off his A3 just to make sure that all of his merciless procs were going into Student of War, but I also didn't have an increased speed champ on the squad, so getting that from Androc's Confidant was actually not a bad thing. Mikage, no form change, and prioritized buff extension. Brogni, I wanted to make sure that his protected shield was on in the beginning, so that was the one that was getting grown and extended for the composition, just to make sure none of them got stolen by the head of Mischief. And finally, for Hatter, this was one where I think I could have switched it up a little bit. I should have had Mixture Most Foul as the priority, because that would have increased my Hex application overall, which, as you saw from the run, drastically increased the damage. I was at no point at risk of having any of my buffs falling off, so having this as a priority was a silly move on my part, and next time definitely would be going for Mixture Most Foul. So with that, let's take a look at champion builds. First one we're going to cover is Androc the Glorious, one of my 3 buff extenders. Now, if you want to replace Androc, if you don't have him, you can replace him with pretty much any buff extender, even like the Mytha, Anchorite, both the Rancid, whatever you need. He can just be replaced by another buff extender. As long as someone else is keeping those shields up and running on Titus, it's really all you need. In terms of other things other value that Androc brings to the team, he does have turn meter boost, so that helps a little bit with getting more turns in. And then he also brings some increased resistance for the team, so you can just counteract that by making your team a little faster with a little more resistance. He is in a 9-piece protection set. Here are his stats with Hydra area bonuses. For his Relic, I'm using a Journal of Necroto since he is a turn meter booster. He is using an Intimidating Presence Blessing. And here are his masteries. If you'd like me to do a guide on Androc the Glorious, let me know down in the comments below. Next up is Titus Blackplume, the star of the show. So I'm not going to be talking about how to replace him on this team. Using him in a 6-piece Merciless set. Ideally, that would have been with 2-piece Zeal. Here are his total stats with Hydra area bonuses. I do have a guide that I just came out with for Titus, so if you're curious on how to build him, please check that out on my channel. For his Relic, I'm using a Cat's Gaze. For his Blessing, he's not awakened. And for his masteries, we have the following. My second buff extender on my team is Lady Mikage. I have her running in a 9-piece protection set. If you don't have Lady Mikage, one of the best replacements for her that's a legendary is, other than Mad Hatter, Lenakis the Chosen. Also brings increased buff duration, ally attack, and some turn meter boost as well, which is nice. Also, if you're trying to replace your Androc for the same reason. But if you don't have any legendary buff extender, then again, the Mytha, Anchorite, both, Sandslash Survivor, any of those are viable options. You just want to make sure those shields stay up on your team. For her total stats in Hydra, we're looking at the following. For her Relic, I'm using a Molten Death Bell just for more accuracy for some other content that I run her in. We have her in a Cruelty Blessing. And for her masteries, we have the following. I do have a Lady Mikage guide out on my channel if you'd like to see that. For my Pheidi Tealcrest, I have him built in just a bunch of random gear, no real complete sets on there, just for good stats. Now, if you're looking to replace Pheidi, Pheidi brings a few different things to the team, but is kind of a floating spot. Again, if you have enough buff extenders, a Brogni, and a Titus, then that team is going to work. The last spot is going to be about managing Hydra mechanics. So bringing somebody that has perfect Veil, if you need to bring that aspect, you can use somebody like a Rector Drath or Quargan the Crown, 2 epics that can do that. If you need somebody that can bring block buffs and bring perfect Veil, Feral the Barcorn actually does both of those. If you need somebody that brings block buffs and a reset on skills, you can bring Lammasu. So there's quite a few options of champions that do part of what Pheidi does. In this case, I just like the whole combo that Pheidi brings to the team for consistency's sake. Now, total stats in Hydra for Pheidi, we have right there. For Relic, we're using Journal of Necrotos. For Blessing, our Brimstone user, bringing the highest smite. And for Masteries, we have the following. If you'd like to see a Pheidi guide on my channel, again, let me know down in the comments below. And for the last buff extender on the team, we have the Mad Hatter. If you're looking to replace Mad Hatter, again, another good option would be Lenakis the Chosen. Brings some of the same elements to the team as Mad Hatter. So the ally attack, we have the buff extension and the turn meter fill. But if you don't have Lenakis, obviously you can just go with any other buff extender, as already mentioned, even some of the more budget ones, like some of the epics like the Mytha or Anchorite, Sandslash, anybody like that. For Sets that we're using on Mad Hatter, we have Impulse, 3 sets of them. Total stats in Hydra, we have the following. And for Relic, Molten Deathbell. And then for Blessing, once again, Brimstone. And the following Masteries. If you're looking for a Mad Hatter guide, I do have one available on my channel. And for the last slot on the team, we have Underpriest Brogni, the Shield Grower. So again, other options for shield growth, Wixwell, Emic, Blood Shield accessories. So if you go with Blood Shield accessories, you don't have to have Brogni on there at all. And that frees up another slot to bring more Hydra elements if you want to. So you can bring, that decreased defense and weaken maybe through Lydia or something like that. Although weaken is coming in from Mad Hatter. But again, you can completely change up the team if you go with Blood Shield accessories. But Emic, Wixwell, Brogni, Blood Shield, and then very situational, but Bamboo's 4-leaf technically can also grow shields for you. For our pieces on Brogni, we have 6-piece Merciless and 2-piece Pinpoint. Total stats on Hydra, we have the following. And I made sure, again, he was higher crit damage than my Titus. For Blessing, Heaven Cast, we're obviously going to have the whole buff bar filled up pretty much during these runs. And for my Masteries, I'm using the following. I will be coming out with a Brogni guide sometime in the next couple weeks, so keep an eye out for that. And there you have it, everybody, the official full auto Nightmare Hydra showcase featuring Titus and Brogni. If you liked today's video, please consider liking, subscribing for more content in the future. Let me know down in the comments below if there are any other guides or showcases that you'd like to see, and also if there's any way that you think I could improve this team or this showcase in the future. Thank you for watching today's video. Thank you for your time. Have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next one.